Hello, this is Darrell Gunter with another episode of Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter. And today I'm so pleased to have on a new author, Mr. Craig Portis, who's the author of Proud to Sell. And as you know, in this program, I always love to talk about sales. Craig, welcome to the program, and thank you for interrupting your schedule to come on and talk about your book, Proud to Sell, and your thoughts on sales leadership.
Thank you, Darrell. So great to be with you today. And thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. So, can you share with our audience a little bit about your background, education experience?
You bet. Yeah, so I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and I grew up there, and I've lived in different parts of the country. But I like to say, as far as education goes, I started off at the School of Hard Knocks. Had a little bit of a challenging upbringing, which I definitely think I bring into my sales career now. I would say like the tenacity and the grit, the straight up grit that I had to have growing up like I did, has been extremely valuable to me. So I started off in sales before I ever even got a formal education. We were discussing earlier, I got with these guys who were in this shoe business, this crazy shoe business that I went to high school with, and we ended up going all over the southeast of the United States, like from Texas to Georgia to Florida, Alabama, and selling shoes on street corners. And it was hardcore. It's a very intense business, and but there is a system to it. And I learned about really more than anything else. Like I look at sales as like a behavioral science almost. And so even today, in a completely different kind of professional services world that I'm in, um, you know, I still have the insight of behavior. What makes somebody decide to buy something when they do? What are those little triggers? And that can be for for a stick of gum, as that all the way up to multi-million-dollar capital improvement projects. And those sales cycles are much different, but at the end of the day, somebody's making a decision to spend money. So I've always been very curious about why that happens, and so I eventually did leave Memphis, and I went out to Utah with a stop in Florida, but actually started my school, my education journey at Broward College in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, and then I moved out to Utah to finish my bachelor's and then go straight for an MBA at Utah State University. So I then pretty quickly got into the media business. I've sold everything. I feel like I've sold like, services, products, a little bit of travel and tourism in there. But for the last 15 years or so, I've been in the media business selling, working in local media outlets, all the way up to some even global sized companies, selling different forms of media. It really focused nowadays on tradition or on digital media, and new media, but certainly have a background in traditional media like TV, radio, outdoor, and things of that nature. So
What a great background. And I tell you, selling shoes, was there a particular brand of shoe that you were selling? I'm curious because
yeah.
that I think that's such a great product to sell because you can see somebody walking down the street and say, wait a minute, hey, we got some good shoes here.
Yeah, we definitely, so the brand wise, it's funny that, yeah, hopefully I there was nothing, illegal going on with our shoe business, but they were like what you would call knockoffs.
Oh,
They were like imitation. So, they look like Air Jordans, but there's no Nike symbol, but they look like it, and was the quality up to Nike standards? No, but the price was right. And
right.
so,
That's right.
yeah, so everything, and that's something else I learned too. No matter what you're selling, like the quality and the value has to match the pricing. And I deal with that every single day. If pricing is not right on spot on, you're going to have some issues. So it's really got to match the value of what you're selling. And I think going back to those days, that was a great business because people needed shoes families needed shoes. I was able to, still remember moms coming up to me with like 5 kids that needed shoes for the school year. And I would love to talk with them and help them make a little deal to help them get shoes for their kids for school. And that made me feel good. But, and they were good looking shoes, but they just weren't Nike Air Jordans. So
Sure. So let's talk about your book, Proud to Sell. What prompted
sure,
you to write this book, and the title, the significance of the title? If
you
you could
bet.
share with us your thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, I chose that title with a lot of intention and decided to pursue writing this with a lot of intention. And really what it all came down to was the negative stigma associated with sales. And anyone who's been in that role, whether you've been in a car dealership, uh, on the street corner selling shoes, work selling pharmaceuticals, it doesn't matter. Every sales rep has dealt with the negative stigma, i.e., the customer or even people that aren't your customers almost looking down on you for being in sales. Like, and that negative stigma unfortunately has been perpetuated not just by pop culture and movies, but also by us sales reps in these moments of weakness where we glorify Glenn Ross and Alec Baldwin's character always be closing. I mean, you hear that thrown around every day on sales teams, right? Always be closing. And it's a joke and people do it as a flippant remark, but there's that little subtle reality or truth to it that, hey, like one thing I like to talk about, and I'll credit someone named Lisa McLeod, who wrote a book called Selling with Noble Purpose. She talks about how like these internal conversations where you might be sitting around with your guys, always be closing, Craig, or a way to close that deal. Would you want the customer in that conversation? How would you feel if a customer, and that always bugged me. I would always have, these internal conversations and be like, yeah, what if a customer was in this sales meeting right now? Would we want them to hear what we're discussing? And I think that's pretty radical. Like I've never heard anybody say that. So I was like, maybe I need to explore this more and maybe publish and write about this. And that's what I ended up doing. And so if you don't mind, and I'd like to touch on the
Let's do.
you know,
Absolutely.
yeah, sort of that pop culture element, because I think that's something that makes this book pretty unique. I mean, I've read a ton of sales books, and I've watched all the sales movies out there. I think if anybody has any suggestions, I'd love to know. But the Tommy Boy, Glenn Ross, right? I write about Tommy Boy. There's a lot of fun in this book too. I think because I bring up some of these movies, but pop culture hasn't done us any favors for sales reps. The worst and most recent, I would say the biggest blockbuster film that damaged sales was The Wolf of Wall Street. And look what's happened from that. Jordan Belfort went to prison, but now he makes possibly more money than he made back when he was doing crimes as a sales trainer. Everybody wants to know the secrets of the Wolf of Wall Street. How do I close people? How do I get people to do what I want them to do? And my position is you need to find out what their problems are. It's not all about, your macho kind of alpha male approach, that the pop culture has sold us. And now social media has made that like 100 times worse.
Right.
So
Right.
that's basically what it's about.
And so when we think about the book for the reader, what do you hope that the reader will be influenced by, and what type of behaviors would you like to see the reader adopt, if you will?
Sure. Yeah, so I think this book is written for people just like me who either have worked in sales for many years but still struggled. There's like an internal conflict. This was my conflict. It was, you know what? If it comes down to it, Darrell, there's been moments in my career where, and I've had success. I've been in President's Club. I've been account executive of the year and had a lot of success. But there's also been times where I've been like, if to truly be successful and reach the highest levels of success in sales, do I really need to abandon ethics and go, full in on the aggressive? And I mean, I've had sales reps be completely explicit with me about when I get an opportunity to, to slam the client, as in sell them a bunch of stuff, I go for it. I've had, and they brag about this. They're proud of this, right? And the title of the book is intentional in that I want the reader to be proud of their profession and not embarrassed or shamed at being in sales, despite the fact that on those lists of sort of least respected professions, sales is down there with politicians and other notable professions. But you can be proud to sell, and that's what I want to give the reader is confidence. And I do include a couple of exercises in there. One is the Proud to Sell promise, which is kind of like a Hippocratic oath like
Okay.
doctors do for sales,
Right.
do no harm. And then there's confidence building exercises, because confidence is everything to me. And I mean real confidence. I don't mean the fake Grant Cardone and Wolf of Wall Street kind of braggadocious stuff. I mean real confidence from knowing you're out to help the customer. You're not out for yourself. And so I want newer sales reps too, students considering a career in sales, and who may have been influenced by that negative pop culture perception. I want them to find this book and realize, no, this is a legit career. You can be successful. You can make a ton of money, but you can also be fulfilled and not have to walk around with that extra weight on you of that negative stigma. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's discuss each chapter if we have enough time to. This is really good.
sure.
So you talked about the negative stigma of sales and how you want this book to over help people to overcome that. So let's talk about your personal journey and the lessons that you came away with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I start the book off with a really what was powerful to me, this experience I had at a TV group I was with in the past, where we I think every sales rep has probably dealt with, leadership kind of pushing product on you or pushing initiatives, and that's all fine and dandy. Where it gets to be a problem is when it is completely removed from, and I've been in B2B sales most of my career. So I'm dealing with SMBs and small business owners. And in
Yes.
this particular situation, this was a direct product with small business owners where there wasn't much value to this at all. And we all knew that.
Mhm.
And it was completely one-sided. The TV group needed to monetize overnight inventory. We're talking 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. stuff. They turned around and tried to monetize that when, like I was talking about before with the shoes, the price has to be right. And in most cases, the price for that inventory overnight on TV stations should be $0 because that's how many eyeballs are typically watching it. So they came up with this grand scheme to try to sell that inventory and package it. And the individual that was driving this from a corporate standpoint, to me, was the negative
Mhm.
stigma of sales personified, from the way that they dress. I'm not big on, the Armani suits and the, super fancy. I feel like that is the negative perception of sales.
Mhm.
That's the negative stigma. And so this individual was that. And so I start off, and that experience, I happened to be killing it this year in sales. This was about 2014. Um, Despite my numbers, I still felt so much pressure. And every week, my manager coming around to my desk, have you sold XYZ? Have you done, and it's like, no, but because the clients are actually telling me, Craig, I'll even do a bigger package with you if it's something that I see is going to work. That's how strongly they felt against this. And that just created so much conflict in me between what my boss wants me to do and what's right for the customer. And I have tried to err on the side of doing what's right for the customer my whole career. So there's definitely my personal anecdotes in this book.
Mhm.
But that's just one example. But I feel like I share that with so many other sales reps who have been pressured to do things that may not be in the customer's best interest. So, yeah, that's my experience.
Mm,
So,
man, okay. So you have a chapter on the impact of media portrayals on sales.
yeah,
You touched
yep.
upon it earlier. Did you want to go a little deeper into that aspect?
Yeah, like so in the book, I feel like, I think I think this is a fun book with, like that's one thing about sales books, some are more fun than others. Some of them are as fun as reading a phone book to. Before you go to bed. Others, I think I wanted it to have a bit of my personality. I'm a huge fan of pop culture and movies and everything. And with that, I thought it would be fun to include some examples. And so I call out the usual suspects of sales movies in here, which is, Glengarry Glen Ross, The Wolf of Wall Street. But I like to talk about Tommy Boy. There's a particular scene in that book or in that movie where Brian Dennehy, who plays Mr. Callahan, and I'm not going to do any spoilers, but he closes a sale, and it's like the epitome of like the big bad sales guy closing the deal, overcoming the objection, being a smooth talker. And it's just a lot of fun, and then you watch that movie and you get to see, Chris Farley's, journey at becoming a good salesperson and everything. And but those are powerful forces, pop culture, and now with social media, they really shape our perceptions. I mean, I've had so many people in Darrell, I know you were in sales, like, you walk into a meeting with a customer and they make certain comments like, like, oh, you're just, I know you really want to make this sell, Darrell, so, and it could just be a joke, but it's a clue into their mindset about sales. And I know that that's driven by pop culture. So that's sort of why I wanted to include that and make it really kind of a pillar of this book.
Right. Interesting when you say that. I actually had a customer say that to me, and I said, "No, no, I'm here to solve a problem for you. I said,
Exactly.
solve a problem for you. I'm not selling you anything."
Exactly. And so going back to the title, Proud to Sell, another thing that prompted me with that title and just the whole book was I started seeing these job titles, marketing consultant, or, I'm an account executive now, which is a good title. It's fine. But people have taken the word sales out of their title or even out of like their department. And I think that we should be, you can be completely open and proud of the word sales and of the profession as long as you are following ethical principles and doing what's right for the client. There should be no shame. So you can be proud to sell. And that's really what I want people to get, because I'll be honest, I think a lot of this is catharsis for me. There were times when I said, what am I doing? I'm making phone calls that interrupt people's day, and I'm trying to get them to spend a bunch of money. Like I started doubting myself and losing confidence, which that's a sure path to failure in sales is losing confidence. So so yeah, I think that understanding that is a big deal. And like you said, you're not here to sell something, really. You are here to solve. I look at myself as a professional problem solver, and doing that and receiving compensation for doing that is completely fine. So
That's right. That's right. I focus on needs, features, and benefits.
yeah,
If I can meet that three criteria, then I've done my job.
yeah,
It's fascinating because I teach at Seton Hall. I've been teaching professional sales since 2009 at Seton Hall on the graduate and undergraduate level, and I have found that the students who have come through or the course, and then of course it was with my former colleague, unfortunately, John Hoffman, who
mhm,
passed away, but we had people from finance, manufacturing take the course, and they would go, "Wow, this is the best course because not only did they learn how to properly sell, but how to conduct themselves in a meeting, how to present, how to ask and answer questions, how to handle objections, how to read and understand the person because we study social styles, you know." So
I love it. Yeah,
it's not rocket science, but there's a certain level of fundamentals that if you follow, you will have a very smooth path for that.
You bet. Yeah, the communications piece, right? Like it's communications, and I think sales is largely communications. It's gotten a lot more quantitative, in recent years, and very data driven, which is all fine and dandy. I mean, a quick thing about me too is, back around 2011, 2012, when I was starting my MBA and getting into the media business, which has a lot of numbers, very numbers driven, which is a dichotomy because it's also very artistic. There's, you know, building the ads, the creative side of it, which are all involved, all part of the sales process in media. But one thing I did was I kind of went all in on numbers and data. And I thought that was going to differentiate me. And I have to look back on that and think that it was a little bit of a mistake, that I might have been more successful earlier had I focused more on the communications and the creative side of things, the emotional side. So that's a lot of what I'm doing today is focused on the emotional side and even like the performance art side of sales, which is crazy that I would never associate sales with performance art. But look, wouldn't all salespeople love to get up in front of a billionaire, investor or something and make a pitch, right? And when you're doing that, you're performing. It's You're like an actor. I'm actually looking to get into some community theater right now.
I
To
did, I did,
Yes, so there you go.
I
See,
did,
yeah,
did that, and yeah, it's fun. You know,
yeah.
it helps you to really look at the different aspects of your personality and accentuate some very good things that might have been buried before.
It's so cool to discover this stuff, Darrell. And one there's a Kristen Roderick, who I'll call out, who I worked with at Town Square Media for a couple years. She would always come into the room with such a presence, and like she did a lot of trainings for us, and she had such a presence about her.
Mm.
And not too much long after I met her, guess what I found out about her? She's into acting, and she's into filmmaking. And I'm like, I put the two and two together, and I was like, I gotta look into this acting thing, because I look at salespeople too. I mean, we all do, and we say, this person. One of the things in the book is a question, that a powerful question, which is, would you buy from you? Look in the mirror to get yourself, if you're going into a meeting, would you buy from you? And so you kind of put the hat on of the buyer, or the consumer in that. And this, going back to Kristen, I would absolutely feel comfortable, confident in her. And she's not just acting; she's a real professional. But it's the delivery and the communication of what your value is that I'm working on to
Mhm.
this day. So you
So,
know,
we're running out of time, but we still have 6 minutes left. Uh,
okay.
but when you have this chapter on overcoming the damage of media on the perception of sales perceptions, what are some of the best practices that you cover in the book that talks about how to overcome that?
Really, Darrell, it's leading by example. And I hope that this little book and those who read it and believe in it, will be the counteracting force, because the force we're up against is incredibly powerful. And so, to overcome that, we need to start sort of a movement. And I know I'm not the only one out there, but I spend a good amount of time trying to find like-minded people and organizations. And so we need to come together to really tell this story and promote that as a counteracting force. So there's a few people on social media that I truly believe in, who are doing the right thing. Yourself, Lisa McLeod, Dale Dupree, who has a company called the Sales Rebellion, who's really changing the game and the narrative around sales. And so I would say the best practices are, follow these individuals and take that with you every day in your sales journey.
So you started a group, a sales group on, and
Yeah.
what group?
Yeah, it's just hashtag PROUD2SELL, the number two, just like the book. It's on LinkedIn. If you just search that, you should be able to find that group and join it. And I'm publishing content, not as often as I want to, but I think I publish some pretty funny content. Also, it's entertaining, even if it's just me making a fool of myself. But I try to challenge this. I try to challenge the stereotypical sales narrative out there, and offer some insight. And again, I tell people I am a quota carrying, as of today at least, fully employed sales rep. I work for a company. I'm not just a writer. I'm not just an author. I do this every day. So I think my perspective can help help people
Absolutely.
with their day-to-day sales journey.
So we're running out of time, but we do have
Yeah,
time to talk about, which I love this chapter, the power of humble leadership and the pitfalls of ego in sales. If you can talk
yeah.
to.
Yeah, I think that chapter really is a tribute to the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, which I picked up in around 2008. And that book really was a building block in my life and my career, because I grew up in like the 90s, and all of the pop culture stuff about success. I'll use the name Donald Trump. Everybody, before he got into politics too, like I mean, like he was, in my generation, like he was the CEO, the real estate guy, and like what success was.
Bill that he didn't even write.
Yeah, right, right. Like, so we'll get off of him, but that is an important factor. And th- what that book taught me was, no, guys like Darwin Smith of Kimberly Clark, who you've never heard of, all these CEOs you've never heard of, running companies that sound boring, like Kimberly Clark, blue chip companies who killed it. They statistically, empirically verified their stock market performance based on these factors. One thing was, there's the charismatic CEO, and then there's what he calls the level 5 leader, which is that humble leader, who's understated, but he's also like has such a strong will to win. But he doesn't care about how he's seen. They care about the work. They care about
Well, Craig, that wraps up our show for today. I want to thank you for coming on the program. We're here with Mr. Craig Portis, author of Proud to Sell. Again, really appreciate all of your insights and your time coming on the program.
You bet. Thank you so much, Darrell, for having me.
Well, that wraps it up on Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter. And if you've missed any part of this broadcast or podcast, you can go to Podbean, Spotify, and Apple iTunes and listen to all of our 350 plus shows. Have a great day, but remember, leadership begins with you.